Have you ever been subjected to discrimination? Yes, I have, but not by others, but by my own father. He wanted to disown me because of my sexuality. My name is Josenai. I'm a gay Burmese man. You didn't expect it, right? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. It doesn't really matter because this is who I am. Since I became aware of my own sexuality at a young age, troubles began at school. The older boys haunted me and make fun of my behavior. I always try to ignore their brutal words, just focusing on education instead. Later on, I realized that focusing on education or reaching accomplishments in education is to seek approval from my parents as well. My father once told me that he knew there are famous gay fashion designers in the US. However, if I, his only child, was gay, I would be abandoned from the family household, and I would not be allowed to attend his funeral. This really hit me hard, but I just laughed it off and pretended that he was referring to some other gay man. In 2013, returning to Myanmar, I was given opportunities to try out different careers, whether it be developmental field or business sector. Just so you know, I found the perks of a marketing director was quite attractive, but I wasn't happy. I was not happy because I realized that something really important is missing in my life. Deep down in my heart, I'm still looking for belongingness, love, respect, and acceptance from my parents. As you can see that Maslow theory of hierarchy needs, I have met most of the basic needs and some of the psychological needs, but I'm still missing some of the aspects of psychological needs, such as belongingness and love, especially from my own father. I try to rediscover my identity, and I try to recall how I helped others who were going through similar emotional and traumatic experiences. Because the year 2016 was the lowest point in my life because of my unhealthy coping mechanisms to escape from unhappiness, numb my feelings and pain, and subside those negative thoughts, but not suicidal though. It really, I was really lost, and that's how I, felt that I must do something to help myself. As a social worker, I always believe that there is always hope, even in times of despair. And I often stated to a few clients that even when you cannot hold hope, I will hold the hope for you even when you cannot. I realized that in our lives, support is key to making a difference, a huge difference in someone's life. As a social worker, we believe that people can change, and that social workers, we are in the position to facilitate and guide those changes in someone's life. What I realized was, after going through all these traumatic experience and wrong coping mechanisms, based on my social work teachings and how I recall helping others as a social worker, I realized that I need to apply those social work skills on myself to find a better version of me. And through therapy and counseling, I had the opportunity to explore who I am and what has made me into me, define my own qualities and attributes, and no longer rely on recognition of or external validation of others. The contemplation of my own actions made me realize that the most important relationship I will ever have is with me. I need to start loving myself and be respectful who I am so that I can forgive all the mistakes I made. And the strength I gained through contemplating and spirituality made me realize that, exactly, I need to start loving myself. This self-love indeed saved me, and that's why I'm here, and I'm, given this opportunity to be sharing my story with all of you. Because this self-love indeed saved me from unhealthy coping mechanisms and helped me find a way out by loving and forgiving my father and myself. This made me believe that, and always my self-consciousness always, reminds me of who I am. And I'm always, maybe I have resentment towards my dad. But this isn't actually inherently bad, because Jordan B. Peterson, the famous clinical psychologist, once said, maybe resentment is your best friend. But this may fog your decisions and directions of your past. So rather than, decisions are destinies, and we have to have a clear mind and soul to manifest a great destiny. So, like I said, rather than focusing on what would be the best option for the past, we have to focus what is the best for us right now. So, my point is, we have to start looking for what is the true purpose of life. In living not true to yourself. Oprah once said that most of us really want to express the highest and truest form of ourselves as human beings. And in a study conducted by Bronnie Ware, an Australian palliative nurse, people were asked about what are their regrets they had before their passing. Majority of them responded that I regret living a life not true to myself. And new research from the Trivers Project 2022 National Survey on LGBTQ youth mental health underlines a consistent trend. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender teens are at increased risk of suicide. As for startling statistics resulting from this survey, we can see that 50% of LGBTQ teens aged 13 from 17 seriously considered attempting suicide in the last year. And 18% of them actually made a suicide attempt. That is twice more than the rate of suicide attempts by among all US teens. And all these young LGBTQ have taken their life just because they cannot be themselves unfortunately. Well, we really need to find, who I am. And for me, I have found in accepting who am I, but by loving myself and by living a fulfilling life through helping others as a social worker. Enough is enough. People around me tortured and humiliated me enough. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who confronted such challenging circumstances. Therefore, it is time for us to cherish our life, ourselves, and be grateful for the precious life given by our parents or whatever you believe in. So, I would like to remind you all that you are all special, unique, and capable, and hence don't let anybody define who you are. Thank you.